Hello, my name is Randy Detrick. I'm the son of Sandy Detrick, husband to my beautiful wife Tiffany, and the proud dad of 3 spectacular children. My mission is to add value to others. I believe in the power of the human spirit, and thank you for listening. If you enjoyed today's podcast, please share with a friend. Help me spread the good, the clean, the pure, the positive. When there is hope in our future, there is power in our present. Here we go. Another lesson from my mom. Oh my gosh, guys, you're going to love this podcast. I remember one day my mom goes, Randy, you're only as good as your final impression. I go, well, what do you mean, Mom? She goes, well, you're only as good as your last day. I go, okay, well, tell me more. She goes, you're only as good as who you are in the moment that you cross the finish line. Holy cow. You know, you probably all recently seen the image of the lady speed walker in the Olympics, and she's celebrating about 50 feet from the finish line, and she's smiling and pumping her hands just as another speed walker is passing her. Her face becomes a horrible expression because she realized this was the moment that will define her for the rest of her life. She trained her entire life to be an Olympian, and she got there. And the last 50 feet before the finish line, she decided I was going to celebrate early. I have arrived. I've made it. But she celebrated it before she passed the finish line. And this is what my mom was saying when she said, you're only as good as your final impression. You're only as good as your last day. You're only as good as the moment you cross the finish line. Powerful, powerful stuff. You know, that lady, she'll pay the price the rest of her life for that. Because that's the moment everyone will remember of that lady. She didn't go all the way. She didn't get across the finish line. The world will remember her as the one that celebrated a little bit too early. We are only as good as the effort we put forth in the final moments. In other words, our last impression is the final impression. That's a fact. The last impression you make upon people is the final impression you make upon them. And I'm not just talking about impressions on other people. I'm talking about the impression you make on yourself, because that's what really matters. My mom always encouraged me. She said, give life 100% plus 2. 102% everywhere you go. That means you run through the finish line, not to it, but through it. If you've had a career and you've worked for 30 years at your job, and now you're in your last week, man, give it everything you got. Make that week the hardest week you've ever worked, because that's going to be the impression. Our last impression is the lasting impression. That last week is what everyone will remember of you. Give it your absolute best. If you haven't read the last lecture by Randy Pausch, treat yourself. Holy cow. Randy Pausch was a man who pushed through the finish line of life. You see, he knew he was dying, but rather than wallowing in his sorrow and misery, he put the pedal to the metal and captured every single moment he had left in life. Then he distilled it into a book called The Last Lecture, one of the most powerful books on the planet. He did that so that one day he would wash up into his children's life, and he could teach them lessons that he wouldn't be around to teach them. He pushed right to the end. You know, my mom at age 56, while enduring heavy doses of chemotherapy, she was studying for a college degree. I can still remember her saying, she'd go, Randy, my gosh, I hate how chemotherapy blurs my mind. And I think I got problems. You know, I watched her walk across the stage and receive her diploma. 6 months later, she passed away. You see, winning or losing is a choice. Push through the finish lines of life, no matter what. Even if you're enduring the side effect of chemotherapy, push through. Every single obstacle, every challenge, every problem in life, it's actually a gift that life is giving us. You see, it's not there to stop us. It's there to turn you into the person that you are supposed to be. It's not what you see in front of you that matters. It's what you see inside of you that counts. When you make the decision that I will run through the finish lines, the ordinary becomes the extraordinary. Man, I love you all. I hope today's podcast added value to your life because, man, it sure added value to mine. I love you. I hope you have a spectacular, magnificent, unbelievably successful week. Baby girl wants to say...